All right, good evening. It's 6 o'clock. Welcome to the Newfane Selectboard meeting. It is Wednesday, July 6th, and I'd like to welcome Ann Golub, who's on Zoom, Mike Fitzpatrick, who is by phone, and in person is Katie Johnson-Aplin and myself, Angela Sanborn. Has this meeting been properly warned?
Yes, it has.
Great, thank you, Juanetta. Are there any additions or amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, we will go to the approval of the minutes, and we ran into an incident with the May 27th special meeting minutes because it had the incorrect day, so we really can't do any kind of like the last one we ran into, so we can't do anything with those. So we can go right to the June 20th, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Ann. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained. And good evening, Jay. It is time for the road foreman and commissioners report. You have to unmute him.
Hi, Jay.
It's on mute, right?
Well, because of what happened at our last meeting, we have everybody muted, so we'll unmute them so that there's not an issue like.
Oh yes,
speaking.
I heard a couple of words, yes, I did.
Are you not able to?
I've asked him to unmute, but where did he go?
Brian, do you have them muted? Is there any way to
He just dropped off.
Oh.
He must have been in suspension. He probably is restarting.
So while that's happening, oh, he's calling me right now. Hi. Do you want to do it by phone? Okay, well, I will put you on speakerphone and you can do your report. Hold on. Okay, we have Jay Wilson by phone.
Alright, so the arch bridge walls are being set starting today. I think they got the 4 big pieces set by the time they left tonight. There's not much for changes in the gravel pit. We're working on finding a design for the dried up stream bed. We have to have a waterway that will take the high water without washing down that hill anymore. I'm still waiting on the town attorney for the 254 Depot Road clear easement certification. And we removed some trees last week for Green Mountain Power to relocate the power lines for construction. The Newfane Hill Cemetery tree cutting has been completed. That's the one you awarded last year. They took down the big dead ash trees and a couple of pine branches, and then they cleared along the front by Newfane Hill Road itself. And we had the meeting for the Newfane Village Pedestrian Scoping Study Group, and that was held about 2 weeks ago, and will continue monthly. And there's nothing for updates on the sand salt shed.
All right, great. Jay, did you want to talk about the letter that was read last week while we have you? The emergency management letter?
Yes, yep. I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was 6 or 7 years ago, they had grants out for town buildings to do generators. And for some reason, Newfane didn't participate. Dover, I think, got 4 in that grant for all their buildings. And I've been watching ever since, and we just haven't had any. So, figured it's time that we do something. Both of our generators at both buildings that we use for, in the event of an emergency, are very old and used to begin with, and not automatic, so they don't start on their own. So when you say you have a fire call and the power's out, you need more than one person to come in to get the door open so you can get the truck out, or in the town garage, it's the same thing. The doors are so big that one person can't open them. So you either need to go out and get the generator running in order to get out the door, or try to get somebody to help you open the door. So I figured this was a good time to approach the selectmen about it and see what we could do.
Great. Okay, is there a motion to approve the road foreman and commissioners report?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion?
I want to talk about the request regarding the emergency management.
Yes.
It's a total of about $66,000. I had a conversation with Melissa, who unfortunately could not be with us tonight because of the family issue. But we do have excess monies in our operating budget for the town as a result of FEMA reimbursement that we received recently. So these monies for the generators can be paid out of the town operating budget. I apologize, I don't remember the exact amount that is in the excess that is in the budget, in the operating funds rather, but it is absolutely in excess of what is being requested here. I would propose that we pass a motion to approve this request being paid out of operating funds, and that we then confirm with Melissa when she's back in that that we've got the monies to do so. Just as a safeguard, I feel assured in my memory of our conversation, but I just don't remember the exact amount that we had in excess.
Thank you, Ann. Any other discussion? Oh, we have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay, any further discussion on this one?
Where did she put this money in, sir? Because I mean, come July 1st, where does the money go? Well, that was in last year's budget, right? Is that what you're saying, Ann?
It's gone into the operating account.
Our operating funds are
Right.
higher as a result of getting a reimbursement from FEMA.
Yeah. But that was towards what money we spent out of the other stuff and stuff. I mean, how come we couldn't use something like that ARPA money for something like this?
Here's the issue with the ARPA money. There are just all these different rules that you have to follow. Could you use ARPA for it? Yes, you definitely could. There are just all these rules about purchasing regarding ARPA, 5 pages worth of documentation about how to use the ARPA monies, how to spend them. We definitely could go through that process, no question about it. But just as a piece of information, in conversations I had with VLCT this week, they are coming up with a procedure whereby you can legally move the monies that you receive from ARPA into your regular operating budget and use your ARPA funds to pay for things related to payroll. A little bit, it's federal rules about why you can do these various things. I'm sorry, I can't quote to you exactly what all the rules are, but in speaking with VLCT, they are working on putting this all together. Because of people being on summer vacations, they think it will take them just a few months to get this all ironed out. And then they will put forward a whole documentation. They're working with accountants, in fact, the same accountants that we use to do our audit, and lawyers to put this all together and to make sure that it's ironclad in the procedures that they are recommending. If we pay it out of our operating funds, it would just make our lives a little bit easier using the ARPA monies later on. That's all. We could honestly, though, absolutely use either one.
Yeah. No, I guess what I was just thinking, I mean, it's like that FEMA money stuff has been flood work. I mean, just like Jay was saying, we've got to put a new culvert in right there by WW.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, I don't know, I mean, I'm not against buying generators for the fire department, that's for sure, but, I mean, it's a real long process, I guess we could use our working capital, whatever you got there, and then, replace it with that money,
Yes.
if we decide to do something else.
I agree with you, Mike. It's just really ultimately a pile of money, and just with different rules attached to the process for spending it. Since this is not a request that is urgent that we resolve today, I would be fine if people are uncomfortable paying it out of the operating funds, pending Melissa's agreement, then I would say we could just hold off until Melissa is back and we could have a conversation with her about the best way to do it.
Yeah. No, like I said, I'm not opposed either way really doing it, but I just, you know, you could use that ARPA money that we got. The other money could probably be more well spent as long as it was for flood work on the road. So you could use that money in that line somewhere down the road. We got a culvert, we got to do like I said by WW, we got another one, we got to do up on Eddy Road.
Mm-hmm.
You know, something that might be, I don't know how much money you're talking about from, you know, FEMA, but I mean,
I'm sorry, I don't remember. I should have written it down at the time, but I didn't, so.
Jay,
Why don't we just have a conversation with Melissa when she comes back, because I think that we could probably do all of the things you just mentioned, Mike, if that's what the decision is, but it just all depends on what that pot of money is in the operating funds.
maybe Jay has some clarification for us, or at all, of
Oh.
what that timeline is too? Jay, are you there?
Sure. Timeline as far as,
The flood work that Mike's talking about versus this need, I don't know.
The two culverts, the one by WW and the one up on Eddy Road, and then the timeline for the generators.
I talked to the engineer that could design the culvert for WW as soon as we get the hydraulic study, and he's talking not be able to have that done until late fall, so we would go out to bid for next summer.
Okay, so it's a next year project.
Yep.
Great.
And Eddy Road is probably beyond that. It's a plan that we're hoping to have done and ready, so if money becomes available, it's ready to go.
Okay.
And as far as the generators, they said on their sheet that there's about a 44-week lead time.
44 weeks, so next spring.
Pretty close, yes.
Wow.
So we want to get that order in soon.
Yep.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
So I'm curious if we don't assign a purpose for this extra money that's come back to us, Anne, does that then mean that we lose it
No.
at the
It's
next?
in our,
No, because it's in the operating fund.
Okay,
it's in our bank account. It's our money.
okay.
well, what that money isn't it already replacing money that we've already spent?
Yes.
That money from
Yes.
FEMA is coming back from work that we've already completed and paid for.
Yes.
That's correct.
So it's already came out of your account, you know, road account or something, somewhere down the line. That
Mm-hmm.
money's already come out, because that's what that is, they reimburse us what we spent.
Correct.
Right. So it isn't like they just handed us a bunch of money.
No,
It's all-
unfortunately.
It's all stuff that we've already, it's already stuff that we've gone already through. And spent it, and now it just shows up, you know, all one check, but you know, to pay us back.
Right.
Correct.
And a lot of times when you have that flood work, you go to a loan and borrow against that money. You know, you'll borrow on it, and then when you get that FEMA, you pay you off your loan. So I don't know if there's any loans attached to any of that or not. If we had money enough in the account, so we just kept taking it out of there.
I assume we had money when you,
Wait, one second.
Jay?
Yes, we were able to pay those without borrowing this year.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Ann?
I was gonna say that I thought that was the case.
Okay.
Otherwise Melissa would have said otherwise.
Yeah.
So circling back to the motion on the table is to approve this request of purchasing the generators for the fire station and the town garage and to install AEDs in the public spaces, which is all written out in the letter from Jay as the emergency management director, pending conversation with Melissa, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on that, or are we ready to take a vote? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there anything further on the road foreman and road commissioners report to be discussed, or are we ready to take a vote? Here,
It's ready.
I'm sorry?
I guess we're ready.
Great, all those in favor to approve the road foreman and commissioners report, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, ayes have it. Thank you so much, Jay, and thank you to you and your crew for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, moving along, we will go to Juanetta's report, our administrative assistant.
I have met with Jenna Wilson to review the town office cleaning needs. She is a very pleasant person and does cleaning for other local businesses. Jenna mentioned that her husband has a pressure washer and would be willing and capable to clean the outside of the building and do the windows at least twice a year. I would like to publicly thank Walter Hagendorn for looking after our flower gardens here at the town office. He stopped in on Thursday the 30th prior to the holiday weekend to make sure things look tended and well cared for. VLCT will be offering a training on July 13th at 10 a.m. and I have made copies for you to review. I have registered to explore and understand the responsibilities of our workplace along with the state and federal legal developments regarding this training. And then in 2024, Newfane will be celebrating its 250th year anniversary. It's a perfect time to start getting the word out on how wonderful Newfane is. I would like to ask the Selectboard to consider doing a summer series for community. I understand this used to be something that Newfane and New used to do with Music on the Common. Some suggestions could include acknowledging a town volunteer, employee, or a business with media posters and the town website. Advertising friendly. Newfane offers free ice cream for a few hours using a Southern Vermont vendor like the Blueberry House in Guilford. Doing face painting, clowns, juggling, or mystery shopper for customer service with gift certificates as prizes.
Those are all neat ideas, and I think it's important that we look at our town for the anniversary.
It just seems like a perfect opportunity to toot our own horn and advertise and get community involvement again. It's been since COVID and before that.
And it'd be a great time to get all of the community involved in it, so.
Including the villages.
Yes, including the villages and businesses and all of the groups associated.
It would be nice to do something monthly, celebrate
Yeah, I think that would
all
be great.
through the year. Have something just to be like, in March, sugaring season, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, do snowshoe tours,
Just do it. There's all kinds of stuff.
yeah.
Well, let's all brainstorm and then we can come back and,
How about we put a committee together?
would you like to be the head of that committee, Juanetta?
You seem enthusiastic.
I will be a member of the committee.
Are there any other volunteers, or will you put it out there to folks on your email list in town and ask people if they're interested to please contact you?
I would definitely be interested in being on this committee.
I think it would be cool.
Yeah.
I will assist wherever, but not on the committee at this time. Great, so we'll get that in the works. You said that at our last meeting you had, oh, actually, let's have a motion to approve the administrative assistance report before we go further. Is there a motion?
I'll make a
Make a
motion.
motion.
Jeff beat you, Mike. Is there a second?
Got it.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, further discussion. You said you had met with 2 other cleaning folks?
I met with Integrity Cleaning and they're out of Wardsboro. Their rate was $35 an hour with a 3-hour minimum. And then there would be a different rate for washing the windows. It would be a one rate, you know, for the
Right.
job. And Jenna is associated, I believe, with Masteller, but she does her own personal ones for the people and the library. And she lives 2 doors down.
Is her rate?
Her rate is less than the Integrity. She's at $30 an hour. And I know we were paying the other lady from Vernon, we were giving her, I think, $26 or $27 an hour.
And was her hourly rate different to clean windows or the same?
We didn't have her clean windows.
I meant Jenna.
Oh, she didn't give me a price on that. But I did give her the non-employee workman's agreement.
Okay, and what about the other company? There was one more, wasn't there?
No, that was
That
just,
was it?
that was it.
Do you need us to vote on this? Or have you already?
I just need permission to go forward with somebody.
And after meeting with both of those, who would you suggest?
Well, Jenna's closer and her rate is lower. And she does other businesses in the area, so it's gotta have a good effect.
Okay, and does she have a minimum hour?
She did not.
Okay, that's good.
I'd say give her a 30-day trial.
How about a 90-day? Because we only do the office every 2 weeks.
That sounds good to me.
All right, is there a
Trial
motion?
period, if it doesn't work out, then we'll find something else.
Let's have a motion. Is there a motion to hire Jenna Wilson and give her a 90-day probationary period? Thank you, Mike. Second?
I'll second that.
I can,
Thank you, Ann, but Katie beat ya.
I,
Need buzzers.
Any further discussion? It would be nice to have a cleaning person back in the office.
It certainly would.
Yes, it will.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Winetta, will you call her first thing in the morning and
Yes,
let her know?
I will.
Great. And then her 90 days would start the first time she cleans, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you'll keep track of
I
that?
have a question on the report.
Yes.
In the 3rd bullet, you say that the LCT is offering a training on July 13th on what?
The training on the 13th is the Windham Regional Commission will be hosting a virtual act. Well, we have-
It's that one.
well, there's 2 then.
Okay.
On the same day?
That's,
Creating a transgender inclusive workplace, legal update. Join Emily Chamberlain Adams, Vermont Assistant Attorney General of the Civil Rights Unit, to explore the legal responsibilities of employers and managers with regard to important transgender and inclusivity, topics in the workplace. That is Wednesday, July 13th from 10 to 11:30 a.m. via Zoom. If you are interested, please contact Juanetta and she will make sure you are all set up. And then what about the one from the Windham Regional?
that one is emergency management on the dams, isn't it?
Yes.
That's,
Also the same day at 6 p.m. It is
I-
with Ben Green, the dam safety engineer with the Vermont DEC Dam Safety Program. The Act 161 covers all requirements related to dam ownership. This will be your opportunity to learn and ask questions about the new rule and its implications for town-owned dams. Please mark your calendars and spread the words to others who should be in the know. And there is a Zoom meeting. It's all attached to your packets. So if you're interested on either one, one is July 13th at 10 to 11:30 a.m. The other is July 13th at 6 p.m.
How many dams do we have?
There is the one dam up, well, we own the spillway.
Up at
Okay.
Kitty Pond.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only one I could think of off the top of my head.
yeah. And Jay is going to attend that Zoom. I asked him today.
Okay, is there anything else for the administrative assistance report? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Thank you, and thank you, Juanetta. Okay, we would like to welcome our Ken Estey, the Chair of the Planning Commission. Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped over
Excuse
Doris.
me.
I'm sorry. We have Doris, our wonderful
And-
lister here. She would like to discuss with us setting the municipal tax rate.
And we also have,
And we have Beckley, also our lister, sorry.
yes,
Okay, not a problem.
2 listers, we got 2 listers.
Yay.
I believe that you have the information about the tax rate, the setting of the tax rate. And also you have the notice of education tax rate that we just got. Both the education tax rate and the municipal tax rate have decreased. In our grand list, if you look at the sheet, it did increase somewhat, but the amount to be raised is less than needed to be raised last year. Anyway, that's why the estimated tax rate for the municipal is 0.5501. And last year, if you look at your sheet, it was 0.6172. So there's your municipal tax rate. And what will happen is the grand list has been completed. We have finished our grievances. We only had 7 grievances this year, which was phenomenal for us. You know, we usually have 20. Maybe they didn't get the notice in the mail, I'm not sure.
It's a good year.
But there wasn't a whole lot of changes anyway, you know, it's like little things, it's not a lot of, we had one house that I know of. But that's how it has turned out, and that's good. So we will have, once this gets put into, and tax bills get sent out, the tax bills have to get sent out 30 days before the first payment is due, which is August 15th. The second payment is due October 15th. So the law requires that we send them out a month ahead of time, so.
So next week is the stuffing of the envelopes.
Stuffing, yeah,
Excellent.
yeah. Anybody have any questions?
I do not. Katie, Jeff? Ann, any questions?
No?
Mike?
No,
All right, so we need to vote to accept the municipal tax rate for the fiscal year of 2023. Is there a motion?
I make a motion.
All right, Ann, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Katie. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, ayes have it. And Ann and Mike, if you guys would like to stop in and sign it, that would be great. The rest of us will sign this evening.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Doris and Becky,
Thank you,
for
thank
all
you.
of your hard work.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Yeah, so much fun.
And now we have Ken Estey, our Chair of the Planning Commission.
Go ahead, yes.
Good evening,
Good
everyone.
evening.
Thank you. Good
Bye, Beckley.
Have you tomorrow.
Always good to be here at the Select Board meeting.
Always
So-
good to have you.
Yes, and being here at the Select Board meeting is an example of the collaboration between the Planning Commission and the Select Board, which is the best possible thing to happen. So, and we've been working on a number of projects, and I wanted to bring to your attention the Planning Commission's interest in what's called the Floodplain and River Corridor Bylaw Amendment. So the significance of the floodplain and river corridor bylaw revision is that it enables the town in a federally declared disaster to get more in the way of a reimbursement from the state, which is to say that our share of emergency money would be 5% less than if we didn't have such a bylaw. For instance, in Tropical Storm Irene, the damages were 3.3 million. If all of the regulations and laws had been in place, for Hurricane Irene, we would have been able to gain another $165,000. That's the impact of a Hurricane Irene or a Tropical Storm Irene event. Forbid the thought we should have to go through that again. But yes, but with such a bylaw revision, we would be eligible for another $165,000. So there's a financial, significant financial import here. This has been brought to our attention through the Windham Regional Commission. We met with Alyssa Sabeto, who is a senior planner with the Windham Regional Commission. And Alyssa is willing to work with us in the Planning Commission. And she has funding that enables her to take some existing boilerplate language and adjust it for our needs here in Newfane. However, these are controversial. A bylaw revision of this sort, does place certain restrictions on property owners. What they can and can't do in floodplain and particularly within river corridor. So a homeowner or a property owner, particularly a property owner who's thinking of building, in the river corridor area, would find themselves, if not strictly prohibited from doing so, they would be subject to the bylaw revision that would be applied, much like any other bylaw, that places restrictions on property owners to do whatever they want to do. So that's the that kind of controversy has made it difficult for other towns, such as Wilmington, to carry out this project. And towns have gone down the road only to find themselves rebuffed by public opinion. So Alyssa is willing to work with us. The Windham Regional Commission is definitely willing to work with us. But they Alyssa asked us, as a planning commission, if we would, present this idea to you. That is to say, to the select board, to see what the select board thinks, and how you view this matter. So that's the, not necessarily as a vote per se, as much as, to inform you as to our intention on the Planning Commission. We would not go forward unless we heard from you more affirmatively that you were interested in us doing this, because ultimately, as you know, with the bylaw revision, we put it together, we have a public hearing, then we send it, revised or not, to you for a public hearing, and then you send it back to us and say, great, or you do not, at which point, the process stops. So better to talk with you now rather than going down that whole road. So the backdrop to this is that in the federally declared emergency, FEMA provides up to 75% of the funding. And in the past, the state would pony up, 25%, and then there would be, because you have to have a matching amount of money. That is to say, there has to be a 25% match. And the question is that on that 25% match, how much is the state responsible for, and how much is the town responsible for? So in the past, it was a 50-50 split. But after 2012, with the Emergency Relief and Assistance Fund, that formula of half and half between the state and the town shifted to go from anywhere from 7.5% to 17.5%. So the question, I'll take this up with Jay, but maybe you know right offhand. I imagine that after Irene, we did decide to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. You know, did we adopt the most recent Agency of Transportation, Town Road and Bridge Standards? And there are a couple of other, the other one that's interesting is, did we adopt a local emergency operations plan? And did we adopt a local hazard mitigation plan? Now, assuming we did all of those 4 tasks after, you know, right around 2012 into 2014, assuming we did all that, we're pretty much at a split in that 25% match, 12.5 from us, 12.5 from the state. We're good. However, if we adopt now the floodplain and river corridor bylaw, then we get an extra 5%, so that the our share is then 7.5% and the state share is 17.5%. And of course FEMA's at 75%. So there's a significant financial incentive for us to do this. But if we're not moved by the financial incentive, we, I think, assuredly should be moved by the type of town planning that reduces the chaos in the event of another severe storm or hurricane. Mm-hmm. Because if we're building in the way of flood or river corridors, that's just probably not, generally speaking, great stewardship.
Right.
You know, as a town. The other thing that we have to also keep in mind, you know, is that the zoning administrator and zoning administration has to be also aware of and also must possess the expertise to be able to apply what can be, you know, fairly complex, you know, stipulations and regulations associated with this bylaw.
Questions?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've got a few.
The first thing that popped into my head would semi-permanent structures like a shed or as an outbuilding be permitted? Or would that, like, I'm thinking specifically of people who are on reclaimed, really barren yards that have nothing, and they probably have stuff that they need to cover because it's a winter environment. Would they be allowed to do that? Would they?
Offhand, I do not know. I will say this, and I should have mentioned it earlier, is that existing structures are not affected.
Right.
So it's always the prospect of something new.
Right.
I'm going to assume you said semi-permanent?
Semi-permanent, like pole buildings, like a shed, a wood shed, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that offhand. I can look into it, so I will.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll ask
appreciate
about
that. That would be important to know, because there's people who have land that they might want to add something at some point.
Absolutely. And that's the, you know, Lynn and I years ago, about 4 years ago, we went to Putney and participated in or listened in on the public hearing, you know, from townspeople and landowners who were, you know, up in arms. They were concerned. I mean, there's no getting around it. I mean, we might as well be public and clear about it. It's not uncontroversial.
Right.
You know, but you would do it in the interest of safety, stewardship, good planning, sound planning, as well as the financial dimension. Mm-hmm. So that's what's at stake.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not like, oh yeah, this is uncontroversial. We're going to save money and there's no problem. No, there are issues, and people will be present, and people will once they, you know, if you're watching us, you know, or reading the minutes, you probably will want to be at a planning commission meeting or a select board meeting, and you may well have something to say about it. Yeah. However, you know, towns have a fair amount of, there are different models on how to do it. There's a state model, and then there's a Windham Regional Commission has a template. And there are different modifications that can be made in the bylaw to accommodate not necessarily individual landowners, but to make it, generally speaking, less stringent or more stringent, as the case may be.
Well, it'd also be helpful to have something in writing if somebody wanted to build something in a floodplain.
Yeah, or in a river corridor.
Yeah.
And it's particularly the river corridor that's significant here. That's a new, that was new, kind of a new way of thinking about this bylaw revision. Because floodplain, yes, that's always apparently been the case, but it's the river corridors as well.
Right.
Especially with all of our roads that follow river corridors.
Right.
Right.
So
And
it
last
affects
year-
so many people.
And last year in July, when more
Yes.
streams were created.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So river corridors can be fairly dynamic. So just to say that the Planning Commission, again, we met with Alyssa Sabeto at our last meeting on June 27th. I've been on phone with her a couple of times, emailing. She insisted basically, and I agree with her, talk with your select board. Don't, get out there on your own. Don't get too far ahead of the game. So, there are a number of options. I can forward to you information that I have. Hi, Ann. I'm looking at all of you, but Ann, yes, and Mike, you're here. So I can forward to you the information that I have. I can, in addition, with your permission, invite Alyssa to address you, select board, on the basis of the information that I forward to you that she forwarded to us. So those are ways in which you can gain more information before, for instance, you make a decision as to whether you're interested. Because if you
Can I have
say...
a suggestion?
Yes.
I think this is really the kind of thinking and issues that we really need to be on top of, given, how unpredictable the climate has become and how variable the rains or droughts can be year to year. And I would find it very helpful if you could forward the information to us so we have a chance to read it. And then after we've had a little bit of time to read it, if you could invite Alyssa to come with you to the select board meeting.
Right.
I think it's, regardless of what we end up deciding, I think it's something that we really should be making a very informed decision
I agree.
on.
Oh, absolutely.
And is this something that's also working with what Margot, who's updating our hazard mitigation plan? Does it
Okay.
work side by side with that?
Yes. It would be, my understanding is that if we're working with Margot on a hazard mitigation plan, then it does look like we, fulfilled the basic emergency relief and assistance fund steps, which means that indeed we are at a 12.5 and a 12.5% match, state and local. And with the floodplain and river corridor bylaw, then we would move that number, so that the state would pick up 17.5 and we would pick up 7.5. So that's what's at stake. So is it related to what Margot might be doing with local hazard mitigation plan? The answer is yes, because it's my understanding, based on a meeting I went to some time ago, that the local hazard mitigation plan called for us actually to do the floodplain corridor, floodplain and river corridor zoning bylaw, which does not legally obligate us to do it. It's just that the local hazard mitigation plan assumes that we're going to be doing it.
Okay.
So it's important for all of us to be clear that that's what's going on, So, and it was my understanding, and this could be over a year ago now, that we did say, and I'm following through, and have been, that okay. My part on the planning commission was to say, all right, we're going to work on this, but working on it means actually coming back to you, the select board, because we don't want to get ahead of ourselves as a planning commission and then for you to say, no, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I agree with Ann that if you send us all the material and then
Yeah.
we have another conversation about it.
Right. So, any other questions about this?
Jeff, Katie,
No?
Mike, any questions?
I have big
No.
ideas.
No.
Ann, any other questions?
No,
Okay.
Okay, so then just 3 other matters that we're working on. One would be, and I'm looking at you, Ann, and also Juanetta, still working on that energy audit matter. So Juanetta and I still need to be in contact. Not Juanetta's problem, only mine. So I will get back to you, Juanetta, so we can follow up on the energy audit matter. And then the other matter was the enhanced energy planning. Now, that's yet another, that's a town plan revision. And the enhanced energy planning town plan revision means that if we were to adopt it, we get substantial deference with respect to the Public Utilities Commission in terms of citing energy generation in the town. So it's good for us to have such a enhanced energy planning town bylaw revision, town plan revision, because it gives us more power in the event that the Public Utilities Commission wants to cite energy generation somewhere here in Newfane. Now, you know, and we did get a good start on this. Bob McCandless was working hard on it at the time, and then Windham Regional Commission had some personnel changes, and for them it sort of fell by the wayside, and then COVID. And so what we're trying to do now in the Planning Commission is pick up some of the pieces that were left in the wake of COVID and some personnel changes on the Planning Commission. So I'm trying to get the rest of the Planning Commission up and running on a variety of things so that we can do more than one thing at a time, because that's been about where we've been operating at one thing at a time, and I'm trying to get the Planning Commission to do more than one thing at a time. To put it in the most simple terms.
That's a good goal.
Doesn't that sound great? You know?
Yes,
It's like,
it does.
yes, I can do more than one thing at a time. It's like, right, you know. So the walking and the chewing of bubble gum and such. So so right now, the one thing at a time that we've been working on quite fervently since the cooler months of this year called 2022 is the tiny house bylaw amendment. So we are working on that. We are closing in on a final version. Internally, we're going to bring in some experts to talk with us about what we have done. And we are prepared to, sooner rather than later go into a public hearing modality, and then it goes to you. And however, you may well like to take a look at that as well before we get too far into the mix. So that's a major thing that we've been working on, is the tiny house bylaw. Jane is still here with us. Jane is always faithful to the task of the Planning Commission, as well as her work with DV Fiber. So she's relentless in her work with DV Fiber, and I suspect that this would be a good time, if Jane wants to, if Jane was planning to, weigh in on your work with DV Fiber.
Can I unmute myself? Did that work?
You're done.
You're good.
Okay,
Okay. I thought someone had to unmute me for you.
you're done.
Yeah, DV Fiber's moving right along. We're having more grant applications with the VIII for some more money. We've got cable in the works. We've got coordination with the engineering firms that are doing the work going pretty far down the road. So hopefully any day now we'll get started actually hanging wires up on telephone poles, which would be great to reach that point. It is going to be, be aware that it's going to be Stamford, Whitingham, it's going to be a while before it gets to Newfane. So I hate to get everybody excited about it and then say, yeah, but it's not yet. But that's how it will work. Our mandate is to wire up the unserved and underserved first, and our town, unfortunately, is fairly well covered. So it will be hitting other towns first. All right, any questions?
I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work, all of you, it's wonderful.
Yeah,
I
no,
have a question for Ken.
yes.
I know that you're finishing up on the tiny houses, and I'm curious if you, just like, what are the next, not everything that's on your list, but so what are the next 2 or 3 things that are on your list to work on from the Planning Commission?
Well, yeah, well, certainly the floodplain and river corridor bylaw, you know, and the things I just mentioned in terms of the enhanced energy planning with respect to the town plan, as well as the energy audit, although that's a smaller matter. Some other issues, you know, we did have a meeting in which we discussed, you know, say our priorities for 2022, but I think these are the matters that sort of pretty much rose to the surface. You know, certainly any kind of collaboration between the Planning Commission and the Selectboard around the ARPA money and the results of the survey certainly is on our radar, but we don't really discuss that meeting to meeting because at this point there's not too much to discuss. We turned it over to you, but it's still on our minds, you know. But those are the things that we have on our minds these days.
Okay, great.
Certainly if you have ideas on things you would like us to consider, we'll take that under consideration, but right now that's our story.
Looks like you have a lot.
Yeah, well, okay, and then, true, I've left this out because it's sort of the, it's a preoccupation of ours and we just haven't been able to wrap our heads around it, but short-term rentals.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the short-term rental bylaw revision has gone through a wide variety of iterations and discussions and to no easy resolution. It can go anywhere from simply recognizing the existence of short-term rentals as an entity that can be defined in the zoning bylaw, and it can also include any number of other provisions. It could be the mere fact of recognizing it as such, so the DRB, Development Review Board, can act accordingly, would be, I think, a substantial improvement, even if there's no regulatory matter around it. And many discussions have ensued, you know, in Planning Commission meetings, whether the best place to manage the question of short-term rentals is in the Planning Commission and in the zoning bylaw, or whether it's a select board ordinance. And their towns and cities do different things. So it could be something that you might take on, and we might be in an advisory role to say, well, here's what we think you should do at the select board level. And the issue, of course, is whether short-term rentals are a good thing or not a good thing. In other words, you know, what we've heard from town people is that short-term rentals are excellent for the people who own these homes. You say, well, you know, if you want to talk about affordable housing in Newfane, we can't afford to live in Newfane unless we have a short-term rental in our property. Others say, well, short-term rentals get in the way of long-term rentals. But then the argument is that short-term rentals arise to meet specific needs at specific times, and they could never be long-term rentals anyway. And so there is many debates. There are many debates as to whether short-term rentals are the bane of our existence or whether they're actually a very positive development for the people who have them. And so resort towns are struggling with this now, and I don't think that there's an easy answer to this. So any kind of ordinance work that you might do or any kind of bylaw work that we might do will inevitably please some and discourage others. But that's true of anything that we do, you know, as public officials. We please some and we discourage others. But hopefully in the main we do good for the whole town.
I would just add 2 things to that. Just in terms of, as I've been reading about short-term rentals, I have found it very helpful to understand the distinction between two kinds of rentals. One that is where someone buys an entire home and then is renting out that entire home. So therefore, you have taken a home off the market that could be used for long-term rental versus someone renting out a room or a few rooms in their home. And I'm sorry, if it's a whole building, if it's a year-round, because I know some people have a camp or whatever that's really not feasible year-round. But so a home that is being rented out and that is being used on short-term rental and therefore it's not available for long-term rental, versus those people who are renting out a room in their house or 2 rooms in their house or a portion of their house, but it would not be viable because let's say it doesn't have a kitchen or whatever. It would not be viable as a long-term rental. And so I think that each time I think about the issue of short-term rentals, I try to understand it as a distinction between those two kinds of buildings, which I think makes a huge difference in thinking about how to think about their whether or not they should be regulated, etc., and what the issues might be. I think there are going to be some interesting discussions coming up in the next year at the state level and other places, other communities as well who are thinking about this issue. But what I've been thinking about is, we had some meetings regarding the ARPA funds talking about housing. And one of the, I was going to mention this later, is it okay if I go into it now, Angela?
Of course.
One of the things that I've been talking to folks about is what we might do with the ARPA monies around housing. And one recommendation that has sort of been bubbling up is to do a proposal requesting submissions from planning organizations that would look at the issue of housing, of what can be done, where it can be done. Doing an assessment of the town to see, could we increase our housing by some ADUs, and if so, where might it be the best places? Could we, are there some properties that are short-term rentals that might be possible to turn into long-term rentals by making proposals or incentives to owners to consider that possibility? Are there places where some infill housing could be done? And to start cataloging a whole series of possibilities. So I thought that was a really smart idea, and I was going to try to write this up as a RFP, a request for proposal, and then share it with the select board and with the planning commission, and then with anyone who's interested to get their input and their suggestions on how we might fill out the questions that we will be asking a firm to respond to, and then give a price for what it would take to do that. But when I was talking to some folks about it, they were saying that one of the pieces that you can ask for is a review of some of our zoning laws and what kinds of modifications, changes, etc. we might consider for our zoning laws that would help to increase the possibility of more housing being built. So it's really, the idea was to come up with a very broad stroke view of the list of questions that we might want help in researching in order to increase housing.
Yeah.
Great. Ken?
Yeah, and I would just say that Ann's discussion about the 2 different kinds of short-term rentals is absolutely on target. And we did have testimony at any number of meetings from townspeople who have short-term rentals in their homes, and they were vociferous in their registering their concern about, regulating them out of existence, for instance. And that was never our interest. It was precisely what Ann was talking about, where particularly people from out of town buying whole homes you know, neighborhoods. I mean, you know, so that basically, you know, a given street is empty homes, 3 or 4 empty, you know, our sort of our, you know, favorite bête noire or our favorite, you know, scary thought was, you know, West Street, you know, just being completely empty homes owned by out-of-towners for short-term rental purposes. And that was the thing that really, I think that was our biggest animating concern, was that, you know, which, and, you know, goes to the question of, could those homes have been, you know, apartments, for instance? Sure. But also it's just the evisceration or emptying out of neighborhoods.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, which is, it's like, well, what kind of community can you build if you're a resort town? Or your street is a resort street? You know, with all the attendant issues that go with, despite what Airbnb says and everybody, you know, there are issues with, you know, uninhabited homes that then get, you know, you get the idea. So those were actually, some of those were our biggest concerns at the outset. So, but it's encouraging to hear and the larger question about addressing housing here in Newfane.
So I have a suggestion, since there's a lot of information that's going to be happening and coming through, if we could separate some of it into the next meeting and then the first meeting in August, so that we can have time to read and get our questions formed, so we can have like very thorough discussions on each part. Is that okay? What does everybody else think?
I agree.
Yeah. And I have a further suggestion to that, but
Yes.
I'm not comfortable stating that out loud right now. We talked about the possibility of doing that, and that would be something to add to it. I don't know. Can I say it out loud?
I don't see why not. To have a special town meeting.
To have a special town meeting to address, revisit the cannabis thing, if the townspeople want to do that. Discuss the river bylaw, or have a solution of a yes/no vote for the river bylaw, maybe the tiny house bylaw. I mean, that might be moving too quick. And then possibly revisiting the police budget with the townspeople, because I'm hearing a lot of clamoring about that.
Yes.
And that would be things to address with everybody who wants to be present.
Yeah, I mean, the question, I mean, that kind of deliberative, that kind of meeting could be useful for getting input. And then the question is, but then, as you know, from any kind of bylaw revision or town plan revision, there are public hearings associated with that process anyway. But it doesn't hurt to have a general meeting. It's just, but you still have to have
An article to go with it.
you have to have a public hearing at the planning commission level and at the select board level
Right.
anyway.
Right.
So it's a question of whether you would like to have 3 meetings as opposed to 2.
In essence, probably more of an informational meeting for folks that aren't able to make select board meetings when we're talking about it.
Right. So, and that's the beauty of the planning commission and the select board working closely together. So we can have those discussions, which is great. You know, so we definitely welcome that. Jane is here because, you know, and as you know in the meetings, Kate often would be here, or
Yes.
Nolan, so, or Lynn. Yeah.
Well, if that's okay with everyone, I appreciate all of your hard work. It's very incredible the amount of work you all do. And we could break this up into a couple more meetings to have more further in-depth conversations regarding it, and then we can start planning how we're gonna move along.
Right. So I'll start with forwarding information to Winetta, and then I think Winetta, that's how it works, right? I send it to you and then you.
Excellent. Do you have anything further, Ken?
I do not have anything further.
Jane, do you have anything further you'd like to add? Well, I really appreciate.
Just say that we're busy.
Yes. And thank you for all your hard work and for being here tonight, for letting us know what you're up to, and always look forward to hearing more.
Absolutely.
So will you be available on the 18th to come back?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. All right, with that, we don't have any Oh, we're going to old unscheduled members of the public. We don't have any. Do we have anything from unscheduled members of the public? Hi, Doris.
Hi. I just thought that I should mention that we're looking into contracting services for a reappraisal in 2026. There's a lot going on, as you know, in the whole sales. We haven't had a townwide reappraisal since 2017, and we have got a contract for 2026, which will be 9 years, which is sometimes a long time between reappraisals. We get about a little over $11,000 a year from the state to put to our reappraisal fund. And right now, I think we have about $81,000 in that fund.
Okay.
But the contract for 26 looks like it's $133,000, which would mean that what we might have to do is, for a couple of years in taxes, raise maybe $10,000 or $12,000 a year to bring that up to the. We'll find some money someplace else. But I just thought I'd let you know that that's what we're thinking about. I didn't want to. I'll bring it up at another meeting for the more specific about it, but it's going to have to come pretty soon.
Yes, you had mentioned that at one point.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding us.
And it's good to, some towns do it more often, but the state requires you to do it if your common level of appraisal gets, what is that? Below 80 or above 115%. And if the coefficient of dispersion gets above 20%. Every year the state does a sales analysis, a sales study from the sales that we have.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of sales that are a lot over what we have things assessed for. Because it's the whole COVID thing and the whole market, people are paying $100,000 more than we have them assessed for, and they're paying cash.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not just Newfane, it's throughout
It's
the whole
everywhere.
state. That's why we signed up to do a townwide reappraisal, because everybody else wants to do one too. And
Well,
getting ready, so.
We look forward to all of the information you provide us.
Oh, thank you, dear. I like to be helpful.
And that you are,
They
Doris.
keep you informed.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, any other unscheduled members of the public would like to speak? Okay, we'll move on to the ARPA funding opportunities. Ann and I met with Jennifer from the BDCC, and we are in the process of meeting with several other people to look at creating a way to grant funds to businesses, so to speak, and help them. But we still have several other meetings to go to actually report on. Do you have anything you want to add to that, or we're just still kind of up in the air?
We're still just in the early stages of analyzing it. What's been recommended to us is to take a look at Dover and Wilmington that were described to us as having sort of excellent programs, and that might be at least a model to start with, to see what we might want to do. They suggested that we consider a grant that would include both startup and existing businesses. Mm-hmm. And they talked a lot about one thing that I found really, really helpful for me was they talked a lot about, and I'm sorry, Ken is still there, it also goes back to what the results of the analysis that the Planning Commission did last year regarding the ARPA funds. They said, think about what kind of businesses you really want in your town and the things that you want to encourage. And so one of the items that she brought up was, you know, everyone around here needs more childcare support. And so you may want to talk about some of the kinds of businesses that you might want to give additional emphasis to or consideration of. And I thought that was those are some really good things to be thinking about. And again, it means, I think, that our planning commission report from last year becomes valuable in yet another way as we begin to think this through. But we have a couple more meetings to have regarding this, as well as then I guess to put together a draft of what we might propose. There is also the possibility that BDCC in the next 3 months will know whether or not they received a federal grant that would allow them to hire someone to work with communities on business development. So we might be able to get even more support from them.
Exactly.
What did you say, Angela?
I said exactly.
Yeah. So we may be able to get even more help from them in sort of thinking this through and in developing a program, but probably they would not know for 3 more months. So I really felt like it made sense for us to keep moving on this to see what we can uncover ourselves and decide what we think would be the best approach for our town. So that's where we are. It's been really interesting conversation.
I agree, it has been. Is there any other information we want to talk about with ARPA funds at the moment?
The only other thing is that it was the question of figuring out how we could pay to do these analyses both on sewers and housing, how you use the ARPA funds, how you go through the approval process. And it was in the midst of that conversation that VLCT was recommending that we look at a way of transferring the money from, and I'm using the word slightly wrong, so, but in essence to make the ARPA funds transfer into our operating budget, operating funds. So that they will have that for us in a few months to figure out. But I think there's going to be a lot that we can do in thinking through these proposals about sewers and housing. Mm-hmm. I know the other thing that was said to us in a couple of different contexts that again I found very clarifying and illuminating. When we were talking to BDCC, the woman was saying, if you want to think about how to help develop the economic potential for your town, the first thing to be thinking about is your infrastructure. If you don't have sewers, water, and housing, you're not going to have the development of businesses that you might want. So think about anything you do to help think about that basic core infrastructure elements will help further the long-term economic viability development of the town. I just found her saying that so succinctly, very, very helpful and very clarifying about how to think about the use of the monies from ARPA.
Yeah, that everything started with the infrastructure and went up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very important. Yes, Ken?
Yeah, I think that's correct about the infrastructure. I think we see that over and over again, you know, across the town. Part of the, for us, the way we viewed the survey as well in relationship to the town plan is that there's always this concern about preserving the character of the town. Mm-hmm. All throughout the town plan, that's a big recurring theme. And part of the interest as well in the smaller businesses or the home-based businesses and trying to support those entities as well, you know, it is in keeping with preserving the character of the town, but also providing the businesses that we don't see on Route 30, right, giving them the means by which they can also thrive, mm-hmm, wherever they're situated. You know, whether they're on Route 30 or just off on a side road somewhere, you know. And so the kinds of monies that you're talking about with BDCC, and you know, the grant process that I know you're working on, that's hugely significant and can go on at the same time as we're looking at the big infrastructure question. At the same time, we can also be, you know, providing monies to the businesses that operate largely out of sight wherever they are, but make a big difference, you know, to people in town because that's their livelihood. Because that's always the big question: how do you keep people also in town?
Absolutely.
How do you, you know, hey, I love Newfane, I'd also like to work in Newfane.
Right.
And so that's the significance of the BDCC work that you're doing too.
And we will have more information to come as we keep plugging along with it, so.
I'm sorry the process isn't faster, but it's a matter of setting up all of these meetings and talking to people and really trying to absorb the information and thinking about how it applies to Newfane. It hasn't been a snap to figure this out and who to talk to, etc. So I just apologize that it's not faster, but it is what it is.
But it's a work in progress, so it's happening eventually. Is there any other conversation about ARPA funding?
Yeah, can I say something?
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Since our last meeting, yeah, because on this whole payroll thing that we did with the bonuses, I mean, when I talked to all the road guys, just asked them if this is what they expected, and they weren't familiar that they wasn't getting the overtime and everything else with this money. Because what we did by doing a bonus instead of payroll, he's losing out on $2 an hour when he's working overtime. And they said they had no idea. They thought it's pretty much equal to what he had up there. And they didn't really like the idea of the bonus because some of them looked into it and said that their tax rate will go higher because it's like a gift. So that $500 is turned into maybe about less than $300. You know, by the time they pull their taxes all out of it, who knows?
Okay.
But I think what we should have done, we should have brought them all in and asked them. Because, you know, yeah, they got a bonus, but they didn't get a pay raise. And their paycheck is going to show exactly what they're making now, plus $1 more they were getting as the 1st of July. It's not going to show that other almost $4 an hour.
Well, and that's what we're gonna talk about at budget season, is their pay and.
Right, and that should have been brought up then, if they wanted another $4 an hour.
It was brought up at the time.
They thought, you know, Jay said the dollar was gonna be good, in which he did it, you know, and then all of a sudden, he was offered another job which was all by the hour, and we offered him a bonus instead of putting him on the payroll. Because what that did by doing the bonus is, now when they're out working this winter plowing or maybe even this summer if we haven't get another flood or anything, their overtime is not going to be, they're getting $2 an hour less than they would if they had that in their payroll.
Okay, so this is everything you mentioned to us at the last meeting.
Yeah, and also we were told that them guys understood what they were doing.
Okay.
After talking to them, they're not understanding it. It's not the same as what Townsend offered them. And so I said, maybe before we get too far in to give them the bonus every month, then it's not going into the payroll, maybe we ought to have them come in and explain to them how it is working. Because, you know, if they don't like it, I mean, if someone says they can't walk, he's getting 2 hours, they're making less, you know.
So if you had never mentioned this to them, would they have noticed?
What's that?
If you had never mentioned this to them, would they have noticed?
Well, I would think you'd notice that he ain't getting his extra overtime, yes. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Why are we trying to hide it? You know, I mean, what do you mean? Why would you ask me if I hadn't mentioned to him?
We're not hiding anything.
Noticed it? I mean,
We're not hiding it, but they were happy until you mentioned something about it, because you thought about it longer.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm trying to hide it. That night we voted on this, I asked Jay, were they aware they weren't getting a raise? They were getting a bonus check, and they're not getting a raise. And then by not getting a raise, they lose out on overtime. This is the way it was explained to them. You know, and another thing is too, I mean, all right, as we get into this whole ARPA money, ever since we've done this, I've had more people come up to me in the last week or two, bitching because we dipped into the ARPA money to use it for payroll account. They said, why didn't you just go right through the regular payroll account?
Well, Ann had a conversation with Melissa regarding that because the motion to approve all of this was contingent on Melissa looking into the operating fund to see if there were funds available and then to go to the ARPA funds. And Ann what was the result of that conversation?
There is sufficient funds in the operating budget, in operating funds. We absolutely can pay the bonuses out of the operating funds without going into the ARPA funds. We absolutely could do that, not a problem. And it was really, well, we discussed this previously, it was my understanding and my feeling that when we talk about raises, we tend to do that as part of the budget meeting. It is part of a recognized process. The entire town is aware of the scheduling, that this is what we're going to be discussing, this is the budget. It felt to me like a more transparent way to address the issue of raises is part of our annual process. We did give a raise this year of $1 an hour. I do believe that we could do, look at this, and I would even propose doing more in our next round. But doing the bonuses was a way of addressing the issue immediately and addressing it for everyone. I did speak to VLCT and ask the question about did they have a recommendation on what was the better way to address payroll raises. They said typically it is done as part of your budget season. It felt to me like that it makes sense to keep with that standard. I think that the bonuses that we did were fair and generous and well-deserved by the men who are working on our road crew, as well as bonuses for the rest of the staff. I think looking at doing across-the-board raises for both the road crew as well as all our other staff who work in the town office, I think that needs to be a more deliberative conversation in light of what our entire budget is looking like, because a budget raise is something that's going to affect it in a much different way, in a much more long-term way, because you don't take back raises, obviously. So it has a bigger impact on your budget. I think it just, from a town planning perspective, it makes much more sense to look at it from the perspective of doing it as part of the annual budget. I definitely think that our crews deserve more money. I definitely think that they deserve these bonuses, and I definitely think that an evaluation or review of payroll increases overall deserves to be part of the regular town procedure, so that anyone in town who wants to be part of those conversations can be. Mm-hmm. And we can have it about all our town employees, as well as the elected officials, treasurer, town clerk, listers, etc. I just think that's, from a policy viewpoint, that is a better, more transparent way to handle it, and that would be my personal recommendation.
Well, I know what you already recommend. You've already voted on it, but what I'm just telling you is what I've been hearing from everybody around town. They're mad because we used ARPA money. They said, I thought we were going to have.
We haven't used it.
Have some discussion on the ARPA.
We haven't used it.
I don't give a shit how you do it, but them guys are losing out, and they didn't realize they weren't getting overtime on this money. So all I'm just saying is, they might just have to come back at you and say, look, this isn't what we agreed on. He come in and tells you he wanted some odd cents, almost $4, plus 95 cents come July 1st, which we already had $1 in there. So all we had to do was match the other bonus, not bonus, the other pay raise. And by doing what we did, we didn't really match it because we didn't get it, but we got a bonus instead of a, payroll increase. And like I said, they're the ones that said that they already checked it out and said something about a different tax rate for them and all this stuff. And like I said, come winter time, they're each making $2 an hour less because that doesn't show into that. That's all I'm telling you. Keep paying it how you want. I'm just telling you what them guys said. They really weren't real familiar with the whole thing. They didn't explain out to them like that.
Well,
Do whatever you want. I don't care. Don't use the ARPA money. Go ahead and use it. But I'd like to see that
Nordy,
money.
To me,
Mike,
that's the difference
I'd like
between a
to-
private business and a municipality budget.
right.
Right.
Anne, what were you gonna say?
just to please clarify, Mike, I already said that the recommendation is that since we have the money in the operating funds, to use that and not the ARPA funds.
And that was voted on at our last meeting. So the ARPA funds are not being used for that.
Correct.
I would invite anybody who has any questions, cares, concerns, comments, that would like to come to a select board meeting and please share with us, and that would make it better for us to have folks that have something they'd like to share come directly to the whole board. That would be much appreciated.
Or send a letter.
Or send a letter, email, correspondence, however.
I think what we should do is sometime maybe have an executive session with each one of the road guys and just see how their feelings are about things. I mean, we never bring them in to check them out and see how they like everything and what their viewpoint is, and what their thought is. Like I said, this whole thing, they thought they were getting a pay raise.
Okay.
That's,
So now, I apologize, but at this point, I feel like we're going around and around and around. So, is there anything different regarding ARPA funding at this point? Anyone?
Nope.
And like I said, anybody would like to share any type of communication, please come to our select board meetings. Please share. We are interested to hear what everyone has to say. Or if you don't feel like you would want to come to a meeting, please send us a letter or any type of communication, and we'd be happy to address it at that time.
Feedback is important. We
Absolutely.
can't improve unless we know.
What is happening, what people are thinking in town. So please reach out. Moving along, we have a cannabis update from Katie.
So I attended a cannabis webinar back in late May, and basically they just went through the legislation and put a little bit more detail into what has already been said, what's in the legislation, and there are just a couple of main points that people may find interesting. One was we were waiting to see if there was any language regarding space between schools, churches, etc., and it will be considered that there needs to be at least 500 feet perimeter around school properties for retail establishments only. Unless municipal zoning laws already states a larger perimeter. Which, to me, that seems kind of small. I thought it was larger than that.
500 feet.
But-
Very far.
Hey, 500 feet it is.
I could see it in an urban setting. 500 feet
Yeah.
is more impactful around here. I don't
That's
think
like
the road
a stone's
is
throw.
500 feet away from our school, so.
As far as the town having a cannabis control board, we can do that. but it wouldn't be quite run the same way our liquor control board is, where they pay us a fee directly. That money would still all go to the state and then be redispersed to us. And it can only be up to $100, which is interesting.
Okay.
It's not very helpful. Again, this is, the entire thing is not particularly town friendly. So it is possible for people to have more than one license, which I believe I've said before, but I'll just say that again. And they can all occupy the same piece of land, as long as they follow the rules.
Is there somebody that enforces the rules?
There will be some inspections done by the CCB, the state CCB. And I guess we can also impose them with the CCC, but that wasn't flushed out. Again, they haven't made those distinctions. They are trying to hire 15 people or something like that.
Okay.
I had asked the question of whether or not for people who are doing the first tier agricultural growth, I had asked the question, there was something about this would only be granted to people with agricultural land permits and current use farms that this would be given to this year. And I asked, how does that work for, many of these are family farms with children on the property. How does this work? And they said it needs to be a completely separate area with absolutely no cross.
Okay.
I thought that was an important question to ask. And as far as agricultural laws go, this is very confusing. Most towns lack any language in the zoning definitions. Existing farms are covered, but that leaves a lot of gray area for potential cultivators. Further discussion is warranted by the CBC. Again, waiting. And the final caveat that's important is if a cannabis business can't follow all the state and town laws, then it may not be possible to follow through in that particular location. And that's regarding lighting, lighting in an air traffic corridor, things like that. Like there's some interesting things that I wouldn't even consider here. It's not really an issue, but it's incredibly confusing.
So would that be, this would be something that eventually the planning commission would have to come up with some type of bylaw to establish, correct?
For agriculture?
I don't know. For the whole marijuana grow.
Yeah, I mean, potentially, I guess somebody might come and ask to have a manufacturing business or something like that, and then we would have to look at the zoning laws and involve Merle and ask if, you know, hey, I've got 100 acres up on such and such road. Well, that's not in the zoning.
Right.
It's all residential outside of the Route 30 corridor, so then what?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we might now have to think about that we didn't have to think about before.
Yeah, well, short-term rental is the same dynamic. So things on the ground often outpace what you have on paper.
Right.
That's the usual situation. And then you're put into, as a planning commission, Merle, Development Review Board, put into a reactive mode where you have to then try to figure out how to fit, what's the old phrase, you know, square into square peg in a round hole, and it doesn't work so easily. So you have to do workarounds.
Yeah. Two more caveats to that. The cannabis retail does not need to be within commercial zoning. Fun fact for everybody, somebody could open one at their house as long as it was a private separate building from their domicile if there were children involved. The other thing is that the CCB will notify the town clerk if somebody has an approval for any of the licenses in our town, unless we notify them that we would like them to share, like say one that we elected the administrative assistant to receive that information instead. However, Carol might need that for her own records, so I don't know what the best.
You could go to both, I'm sure.
They're just gonna notify one, so we don't have to choose.
Well, I don't think we have to choose right now until it's
Yeah.
actually in effect, correct?
Well, I mean, they're starting to assign stuff now, or give out permits now. So, potentially, if somebody from the town has already requested a license, then we could be notified anytime
So,
between now and October.
like Board of Liquor Control, the license applications go to Carol, and then they go to Juanetta for us. So maybe that is the best route to keep going,
Right.
so that there's more than one person involved to get to us.
Yep. Yep. I think that it's important that we're aware, though. I mean,
Because she might have to have it in her records as well. Yes, Juanetta?
I'm sure people have filed licenses already at this time.
in this town.
Juanetta?
Oh, I guess.
So, am I understanding that the state could give permits now, even though the town hasn't voted to approve or not approve retail cannabis of
Yes.
any kind?
That's my understanding.
So if we put it on the warning for town meeting and the town voters say no, they don't want any cannabis, the state can still establish the ones that are already here?
That's only for retail. That's the only thing that the town has any say in at all, yes or no.
So if this, per se, the town votes no, those retails can be shut down.
Yes,
Okay.
they can relocate to a different town at that point
That voted
because
yes.
they have their license, which is good for a year.
Okay.
Okay.
Very interesting, and you'll keep us apprised of anything that changes? It is fun, yeah. I wish I had more firm news to tell you. No, this is great, this is a good start,
Yeah, it's moving.
and I think if we all feel so inclined to read, I'm sure it's all in the legislature, we can read our, whatever we find and. And I would say the meat of the information that you want is in the CCB pages, which is at a different place than the initial legislature, because there were additional articles added that frame all of the parameters for licenseship and things like that.
Okay.
They also have, just click.
Pick it up.
Hi, Mike.
That was Mike Fitzpatrick, leaving the meeting.
They also have pre-qualification. It's already closed for this year, but it would help people figure out if they have all the things they need in place for next year's license cycle, and it will close May 31st next year as well. And that includes background check, basically. Oh, the one thing that is not allowed, big time not allowed, is no delivery.
Okay.
I think that's all.
No delivery?
No delivery, sorry.
Great.
It already exists for some medical cannabis folks,
Yes.
but no delivery from the dispensary for recreational use.
And we will keep this on our agenda as an ongoing item under old business.
Yep.
Yes.
That sounds great. Are there any questions for Katie?
I guess just two questions.
Sure.
One is, does it make sense for us to think about setting up whatever the equivalent, like we have the Board of Liquor Control to set up, I'm sorry, I forget the specific name for the marijuana for the town.
The
To think about
CCC
that.
for us, the Cannabis Control Committee
Yeah,
or Council. We can, the state has not made any forms, there's nothing formal.
So we could just keep that on our radar, that that's probably what we need to do. And then when the
Yes.
form comes through, we can make sure that we are on top of that.
And when I spoke with a VLCT lawyer a while ago, this spring, before town meeting, she said it was best for us to keep that CCC, the approval of the,
Or-
sorry, whatever we approve for licensing, thank you. That we keep that power to ourselves, just as we keep the liquor control board power to ourselves. But that we can have a committee for keeping track of new updates or what have you.
I wonder if it makes sense to consider enacting whatever we have to do, whether it's a motion or, I'm not sure what the process is, to make the select board the Cannabis Control Committee for the town of Newfane. And if we want to change it at a later time, I assume that we could, but then at least we would have that in place if and when a business suddenly came through requesting permission to set up.
Right. Let me speak with VLCT and see if there's specific language that I need to use in the motion, and we can revisit that
July
soon.
18th.
I will not be
You will not
here
be here.
July 18th, so it will have to be
August
August 1st.
Is that okay with everyone?
I know this is a complex question, and eventually I know that, I guess I don't know what comes first. Does the town vote for the retail or not? Is that the first thing that needs to happen, really? Because how could a committee give approval if the town hasn't given approval?
Right.
That, again, that is for retail only, so
Right, exactly.
I will ask that as well.
So whenever you can put this on the August 1st meeting, that would be great.
Because maybe, Katie, if they say that the town should vote first, then maybe that's a reason to call for a town meeting, to an informational meeting to discuss the issue and explain it,
Right.
and then have the town vote and.
Right, so if I remember correctly, the retail licenses will start being approved in October. We have a little bit of time, but not a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
The agricultural ones are already going out. They, and so are the other modes, from testing, laboratory, I'm forgetting the words, I apologize. All of the different types of licenses except the retail are coming out each month from now until October.
And is the window to apply for a retail license closed?
No.
Or is it open year round?
It, for this coming year, it closes on, you have a 30-day, I think you have a 30-day application window, and it closes on October 1st. And then from that point on, over the 30 days, they will process and license those applicants, providing they have all their ducks in a row.
Great. The reason I asked that was I thought if the deadline were earlier, I wondered if we could ask if anyone had applied for Newfane, and if no one had, we would have more time, but we won't have that window.
No.
It sounds like from what you're saying that there's a value in being ready by October 1st.
Yes.
In case an application comes through.
I'm
Yeah,
pretty
yes.
certain people have already applied in Newfane.
Okay, good to know.
For retail licenses?
So
For
we definitely
retail
should get it.
licenses.
Okay.
Katie, do
That's
you
good
know if
news.
there's a limit amount they're going to offer for licensing in counties or towns or?
That's a good question. And other than the combined licenses, which are only being offered to existing medical cannabis retailers, no. That's the only one that I know of, and there's only going to be 5 of them. And that's for, I'm sorry, my brain is forgetting the names of the words right now.
More complex.
I have more notes. Cultivation, integrated only 5 will be granted
In the state?
in the entire state.
Thank you.
And that is for existing medical cannabis retailers.
So maybe if by August 1st, we'll have some information that we can really get started.
Yes, I will contact VTC. I have VLCT. I have the contact person, and she's a callback anytime. So now I have more to ask.
Excellent.
Can I ask one more question?
Of
for
course,
them?
go ahead.
I wonder if there is someone who could come to a meeting to answer questions, because this is really complex stuff. You've been doing a super job, Katie. I'm trying to keep on top of all of it.
Thank
It is
you.
not easy. I
So
wonder if there is somebody in VICT or someplace else that could join us via Zoom, that could answer any questions.
I could follow up with a neighbor of mine who applied to the board. So maybe she got hired. And then we would have an in-town person to ask questions to. Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be
Yes.
fantastic.
So I will follow up with her and ask.
Wonderful. So this is slated to be back on the agenda August 1st. Anybody who has any questions, please come. And Katie will be here with answers maybe.
Maybe,
all of
or
your
at
questions.
least the ability to ask more questions to
Yes.
the right people.
Is there anything further on the cannabis law?
If we have to call a town meeting, don't we need a 30-day?
Yeah, we need, I would
window.
say
Yes.
we need to have,
What
we
is-
need to, yeah, we will take the August 1st and maybe linger on it a little bit, and if we need to move forward immediately, then we need to have that before the following meeting.
What is
Yeah.
the policy protocol on it?
I'd have to check it out. I think it's 30 days or 45 days that we
No,
have to warn
at
a
least-
special town meeting.
Yeah, wasn't it 40?
I thought it was 45.
For the gravel pit?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has to be publicized in the paper.
Okay,
It had to be, gosh, what was it? It was at least 30 days, but not more than 45 days.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
what it was.
Okay. So we will have further conversation about this on August 1st when Katie is back. Is there any new business? Great, so we have just a couple things in correspondence. I'll just read real quickly. This is from Assistant Judge Lamont Barnett, sent to Juanetta for the Selectboard, dated today. Ms. Powling, I'm reaching out to the town of Newfane to ascertain if the town has any interest in a long-term lease of the sheriff's office. I am open to meeting with the select board if there is any interest. Thank you. Is there any interest?
I'd be interested in just learning more. Does it include both the building and the garage next to it?
That is all part of the sheriff's department, I believe. I know that the maintenance.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I believe so, but I'm not 100%. I do know that the maintenance gentleman who takes care of the court properties has use of that as well, so.
Okay.
But
I'd be curious on the conversation, and I'm not clear why it would be a lease rather than, and what their definition of long-term lease is, so.
So would we be okay to invite Assistant Judge Barnett to a select board meeting, probably the next one, and have him present us with what it's all about?
I would love to hear it personally.
I would love to hear that as well.
Excellent. Juanetta, can you please reach out tomorrow?
I will try to attend from far away.
The next letter is from Heather Blunk, dated June 27th. The subject is invasive species assessments for town forests. Hello, my name is Heather Blunk and I work for the Windham County Natural Resources Conservation District. We have received a grant to provide outreach and education programming aimed at providing invasive species assessments to Windham County and town forests, public parks, and other public green spaces. I am wondering if Newfane would be interested in working with us to provide invasive support to your town-owned land. These species are common sorry. Refuges for wooded invasives and their populations routinely spread into neighboring forests, damaging native ecosystems. Their presence in public spaces are also presents a unique opportunity to educate the public. Southeastern Vermont SISMA members will lead walks with municipal officials and members of the public to both identify invasive species and educate the public about invasives identification. Follow-up public workdays will be conducted that will include the planting of native alternatives where feasible. We would like to do the walk with municipal officials this spring and have the community workday this fall. Is this something you are interested in? I would love to speak more about it with you. Thank you for your time. Heather Blunk, Agricultural Outreach Specialist, Windham County Natural Resources Conservation District.
She said she wanted to do the walk in the spring, but now it's summer.
Yes, well, anybody interested?
I wonder if we could refer that to Gloria for the knotweed.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah,
That's
we
what I was
definitely
thinking, I was
have
like, don't we
knotweed.
have a person who likes?
Is anybody, is all,
And Jay as well.
Yeah,
is it okay if Juanetta forwards this with our recommendation to Gloria and Jay? And if they do need a board member, reach back out.
I'm unclear as to what they're asking. Like just identifying it and setting up someone within the town to do this work?
it sounds
Or-
like, yeah, we would go walk and identify invasive species and then set up a work day to try to remediate the invasives that we discover on our walk.
Japanese knotweed.
Japanese knotweed.
That's the main one, but I'm sure there's
Oh,
others.
there's many.
There's
many
several.
things.
So,
It feels like it's information that would be useful to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would be in favor of doing it. It sounds like it's no cost to us,
yeah,
and it
Yeah,
potentially very useful. It may also help to identify new programs we need to put in place.
yep.
Yeah, I would be interested in knowing.
I'd be curious if our town forest has the woolly adelgid on our hemlocks,
Yeah.
which I bet we do, because I have it on my land.
a suggestion is to have Juanetta reach out to Heather Blunk and get several days and share this email with Gloria and Jay. And then reach back out to the board to see if no more than 2 members would be interested in going on this walk.
Can we do this turnaround faster than 2 weeks from now? Is that possible?
No?
It just feels like
Juanetta
time
could-
just slips away.
If
Yeah.
Juanetta could reach out tomorrow and find out, that would be fantastic.
Do we have board members who want to be involved with it so that we can,
I'm
Juanetta could
interested.
directly try to schedule it around their availability?
Katie is interested. Anyone else?
I'd be interested.
All right, Katie and Jeff. Are you interested, Ann?
No.
Okay, and I will let Katie and Jeff have the floor with this one.
Okay.
I like plants, this will be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know about the Japanese knotweed, but I'd be really curious to see if there's something else that we're overlooking that is all around us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bittersweet.
That there is.
Okay, and the last yes. Is Catherine Hall? We already did that. correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so the last letter we have was sent from Elizabeth Devane on Saturday, June 25th. And it was sent to Carol, which Carol then sent to Juanetta for the Selectboard on Monday the 27th. Dear Carol, I hope you're well. My name is Lizzie Devane. My husband John and I own a small gourmet mushroom farm in Newfane. I think we may have met you when we applied for a marriage license. We also applied for CIP funds to support the expansion of our workspace in order to produce more mushrooms. The State Agency of Commerce and Community Development has requested more information before determining if we are eligible for funding. Unfortunately, since the updated information is due Monday, I only realized that they also request a letter of support from our town. If you are able to provide one on such certain orders, we would be eternally grateful. I'd also be happy to provide a template letter. I'm attaching our original application and would be happy to answer any questions and available anytime. Thank you so much, Lizzie and John. So I'll just scan through.
I think they were just looking for a letter of support from the town so that
Yeah.
they could get the funding from the resources that she mentioned.
So
Do you happen to know if they were successful or not?
Is that the farm forest liability?
She was actually going to see if she could get an extension because the letter that she was requesting needed to be back to her on, I'm thinking it was the 4th, no.
No, the Monday before.
The Monday before the 4th, yeah. So she hadn't let me know yet.
Well, I would just propose that if she does need a letter, I would say that I would be in favor of the town providing such a letter of support for her business, for their business, and that perhaps to expedite things, can we say that we make Angela responsible for writing and signing off on a general letter of support? Can we do that?
I would say to have her supply her template letter that she's offering, and you go ahead with that.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That would
Agree.
expedite it even further. So, is that a motion?
I make a
That was
motion.
motion, yes.
I
Okay,
second
thank you,
the motion.
Katie second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Great, Juanetta, will you reach out to Lizzie tomorrow and ask her to send that, and we can take care of it tomorrow?
Okay.
Great. We also have, while we have Ann on the Zoom, are you leaving?
Unless this is interesting, I'll see.
This is Board of Liquor Control.
No, okay. All
Well, thank you
right,
so much, Ken, for all your hard work.
absolutely, thank you
We
all.
look forward to hearing
Bye,
from you
Ken.
again.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Right, Jen?
See you later.
May I have a motion to suspend the regular select board meeting to go into Board of Liquor Control meeting?
I make such a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions? Great. I would like to call to order the Board of Liquor Control for the town of Newfane at 7:57 PM on July 6th, right? Yeah, July 6th,
Yep.
2022. This is an application to request to cater malt, vinous, and/or spirituous liquor. The license is for Deerfield Beverage Concepts LLC, doing business as Deerfield Bar and Bottle. It's for a wedding, dinner, and reception on Adams Hill Road, Saturday, July 26th. Is there a motion to approve?
I make such a motion. Or maybe I can't.
Is it your company?
It's my landlord. Maybe I need to abstain.
Is there a motion to approve said request?
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention?
I abstain.
Great. The ayes have it. Is there a motion to adjourn the Board of Liquor? Oh, there's
You have
another
to sign it.
sign.
There's one place that you sign on the catering.
This is a local catering company.
So
Just
That's
to
the
do
city
a one-time
clerk.
event in town.
town recommends you have to approve.
Wedding.
Everybody.
My landlord's daughter's wedding.
Oh, I suppose.
Town, city clerk signature, okay.
Sign in?
Yep.
Okay.
I suppose somebody had to
Because
do
I
it.
told him I would get it back to her tomorrow because the event's coming up.
Didn't get married.
Make sure Carol sees
Yep.
it.
Well, I got married here.
Great, is there a motion to adjourn the Board of Liquor Control?
Make a motion.
Great. We are adjourned at 8 o'clock, and may I have a motion to go back into our regular select board meeting?
I'll make such a motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, back to our regular select board agenda. We are going now into pay orders. Bye. Thank you so much.